What's going on, everybody? Welcome to the Turnbuckle Topics podcast. I'm your host, Pat Deneen, and this is my review of Friday Night SmackDown. Got a lot to cover here. We had the quarterfinals for the King of the Ring and the Queen of the Ring tournaments. We now know who are in the semifinals for both Monday Night Raw, of course. We knew that going into the show. Now SmackDown. Got a lot to look forward to, and I like the fact that next Friday for Friday Night SmackDown, where we're going to see the semifinal matches for the men and the women, that it's going to be taking place in Saudi Arabia the day before we get the actual premium live event. Usually, typically when the WWE, SmackDown specifically, they're about to make their way overseas or just internationally in general, you usually get pre-taped episodes of SmackDown. So now we get a live episode, which is good. Glad they didn't have to go back-to-back episodes. Typically, they'll record an episode of SmackDown immediately following the live one that we just saw, and then everybody knows the results for the next week, and so it's not much of a surprise. So we're going to get to all that and more on this episode of the review of Friday Night SmackDown. So we open up the show with a quarterfinal matchup here of the EST of WWE. One half of the Women's Tag Team Champions of Bianca Belair going up against Tiffany Stratton. Now this was a good match, and although the person I saw winning this match did come out with the victory here, it looked like several times throughout this match that Bianca Belair might lose this one. But she got it done. They had a fantastic match. These two had great chemistry. And I look forward to seeing them in the future, maybe with some actual gold on the line, some singles gold in the very near future. So Belair, she was nursing her left knee injury early on in this match. I believe it was an injury she suffered the week prior, has been dealing with for quite some time. She's been hobbled with it. And so I said, oh, there you go. This is going to be the reason as to why Bianca loses this matchup. She's got a knee injury. And so Tiffany worked on that early on. Stratton actually on the outside took Belair down to the apron by her braid. That looked painful. And it was getting to the point where Bianca had a couple opportunities to seal the deal during this match. And it wasn't with a KOD, even though she did try the pin attempt, which didn't work out, keeping Stratton down. I said, look, if Bianca is to win this, it's not going to be with anything else but the KOD, which is one of the most protected moves in all of WWE, specifically the women's division, of course. I don't think any woman has ever kicked out of the KOD. To be honest, as far as I can recall. But here we had it. It was a good match. Again, it looked like later on in this match, Stratton was going to get a quick victory over Bianca, hit her with an eye gouge when the referee wasn't looking, a cheap shot to that bad left knee of Bianca Belair's, and then hit Bianca with a sliding clothesline, however, could not keep Bianca down for the 1-2-3. And so shortly thereafter, Tiffany went up to do her prettiest moonsault ever, where it looked like she was about to put a bow on it. And this led to Bianca knocking her down, falling on top of the top rope. And Bianca then took Tiffany off and hit her with the KOD for the 1-2-3. And there you had it. She then advances to next Friday. But again, outstanding match, great chemistry together. And shortly thereafter, they went to a backstage segment where Jade Cargill, her tag team partner, was getting ready for her match. They both look phenomenal as always. And I love the fact that they are both wearing matching gear. They had these turquoise outfits on. Again, they're both fierce competitors and look good while doing so. But we'll get to the Jade and Nia Jax match, if you even want to call it that, a little bit later on in this episode. And again, to add to that brief encounter backstage with Bianca Belair and Jade Cargill, it was also funny, the two teasing them going up against one another in the final round for SmackDown for the Queen of the Ring tournament. Little playful, competition. So that was fun to see, although we did not get that when all was said and done. Too soon, much like it would have been a little too soon for Gunther versus Ilya Dragunov in the final round for Monday Night Raw in that tournament. So I understand why they didn't go ahead and have Jade advance, and we'll get to that again once we get to Jade's match, or lack thereof, with Nia Jax. So now we're backstage. We have Paul Heyman saying, hey, look, Solo, have you talked to him today? Referring to the Tribal Chief, Roman Reigns. And Solo Sikoa responded with, all the time, wise man. All the time. Lies upon lies. It continues just like last week when Solo said to Paul Heyman, I've spoken to the Tribal Chief. I know you said you mentioned that you haven't spoken to him since WrestleMania 40 and his loss to Cody Rhodes, but don't worry, I got it from here. I'm in direct contact with him, so fear not. And Paul Heyman was not going to question him, was going to take him for his word. I'm not sure how much Paul Heyman actually believes Solo Sikoa to be telling the truth, but so here we go. Second consecutive week, Solo's saying, look, it's fine. I've spoken with him, and you don't have anything to worry about. So just continues for the narrative and the story with this new Bloodline, Solo Sikoa and Tonga Loa. And how much longer will Paul Heyman remain with this new bloodline? Will he be in it for the long haul? And especially once he finds out that it's not Roman Reigns that Solo is communicating with, and somebody else, potentially The Rock or another potential member. I'm not sure who might that be, but likely is The Rock. So anyway, after that, we got to see Kathy Kelly backstage. Now, it's been a while since we've seen Kathy Kelly on Friday Night SmackDown since being moved back to Monday Night Raw several months ago, but it looked like she was filling in for the absent Kayla Braxton. So, again, no complaints here. Always good to see Kathy Kelly. And she was with LA Knight, but soon after, Carmelo Hayes made his way in, and LA Knight asked Melo, since you always like referring to Tom Brady, being that Carmelo Hayes is a Massachusetts native, he says, tell me this, who was picked first during the NFL draft the same year Tom Brady was drafted? Now, what did Brady go, somewhere in the 7th round or so? And LA Knight followed up with, nobody remembers, referring to Melo being a first-round draft pick for SmackDown several weeks ago for the draft, and also being the first one to be called up from NXT last month. So look, I'm 1,000% here for a Carmelo Hayes, LA Knight feud. It looks like that's where we're headed. This would not be the only time these two cross paths on Friday Night SmackDown. And so post-match for LA Knight, which we'll get to in a little bit, LA Knight cross paths with Melo, got even more heated. And so they both suffered losses on this night. It looks like they're on a collision course for one another. Could be as early as next Friday in Saudi Arabia, maybe following the King and Queen of the Ring. So now here we had LA Knight going up against the Bloodlines, one of their newest members, Tama Tonga. Tama Tonga, of course, got a victory last week, and so here he was again in another match, this quarterfinal against LA Knight. And of course, the Bloodline was ringside, Solo Sikoa, his brother, Tonga Loa, even Paul Heyman. And what have we expected throughout the course of whether this new Bloodline, old Bloodline with Roman Reigns, the Usos, interference, right? There's going to be interference whether we like it or not. And so that's what we saw. We saw quite a bit. And simply put, Tama Tonga got the victory here, advancing to the semifinals in the King of the Ring tournament. And this is going to be very intriguing to see what's going to happen. Do we see new Bloodline versus old Bloodline meeting in Saudi? Could we see the likes of Jey Uso going up against Tama Tonga? I think it's looking pretty clear that that's where they're headed. Personally, I'd rather see Gunther versus Randy Orton. I think it would be a better match. I'd love to see the veteran Randy Orton going up against the, again, champion, almost 2 years, Intercontinental Champion, longest reigning champion in Gunther. And I think that would be the best bet with Gunther going over. But maybe there's different plans with this Bloodline situation that we got brewing. So, by the way, Solo Sikoa looking the best he's looked the last 5 weeks as being the so-called leader or temporary or permanent, who knows, tribal chief for the Bloodline. Clean haircut last night. Nice red suit, looked great. He traded in that red V-neck from last week and got a black button-up shirt. Looked good. He looks very believable now, too. Again, with this whole, cleaned up the facial hair, his actual haircut, he just looked good. True boss vibes. That's what I was getting from Solo Sikoa. But I'm curious to see where this leads. This was the only match of the night that I'd gotten wrong as far as this tournament, the men's or women's, was concerned. I thought they were going to put LA Knight in that final, but hey, so be it. Tama Tonga advancing in the King of the Ring tournament. And I'm going to tell you what, it's not totally surprising that they're having Tama Tonga advance in this tournament. I mean, you got to remember his father, Haku, around 1988, 1989, King Haku, right? In 88, following King Harley Race's legitimate stomach injury sustained in a match against Hulk Hogan, Haku was given Harley Race's crown and robe and was rechristened King Haku during a coronation ceremony. So that's how he took over that role. He was King Haku. Could it run in the family? All these years later, that'd be pretty amazing to see Tama Tonga get the victory, especially being somebody by the time the finals would take place next week, hasn't even fully been with the company on television for a month and a half, and for him to potentially win this entire tournament, that's a huge deal, and you could really see where WWE is heading, not only with this new Bloodline, but potentially the likes of Tama Tonga specifically. He's had great work outside of the company in New Japan for a very long time, a Bullet Club original with the likes of Finn Balor and Carl Anderson. So I'm very curious to see what they're going to do with Tama Tonga. So next up here, this is probably closer to the start of Hour 2 of SmackDown. We finally had the champion versus champion contract signing for Saudi Arabia next Saturday. The United States champion, Logan Paul and the undisputed WWE champion, the American Nightmare, Cody Rhodes. Now, Cody Rhodes started off by saying on this day, 32 years ago, was War Games 1992. He said, widely considered the best War Games match of all time. He says, like them, I am a fan of professional wrestling. Talking about all the fans in attendance, even those watching at home. And he says, Logan, you're a tourist. You're passing through and making viral memories. It's time you get off the train and drop the United States Championship, making me a Grand Slam champion. Now, before I get to what Logan Paul rebutted with, let's talk about War Games 92 for a second. Of course, that was WCW at the time. And I want to run off some of the matches that took place, but namely the match that Cody was referring to. So, Wrestle War 92 was the name of the actual pay-per-view. This was the fourth and final Wrestle War that we would see in WCW, or I believe in general. It took place May 17th, 1992, in that very building, I believe he said, from the Jacksonville Memorial Coliseum. And so the match he referred to, his brother was in, Dustin Rhodes, and that was where we got to see the likes of Sting's Squadron, which was Sting, Barry Windham, of course his brother, formerly known as Goldust, Dustin Rhodes, Ricky Steamboat, and Nikita Koloff, versus the Dangerous Alliance. Now, of course, that was managed by Paul E. Dangerously, a.k.a. Paul Heyman, at the time, and that team was comprised of Steve Austin, Rick Rude, Arn Anderson, Bobby Eaton, and Larry Zbyszko, accompanied by Medusa. This match went almost 24 minutes. And wow, I mean, the names in that match alone, incredible. But again, the Rhodes family got the victory there, Sting Squadron. Some of the other matches, or some of the other talent on that card, the Steiner brothers, they got a victory. Brian Pillman, he got a victory. Who else do we have here? Ron Simmons, a.k.a. Farouk. He got a victory on this pay-per-view. We saw the Freebirds go up against Terry Taylor and Greg Valentine. They defeated them. We even saw DDP in the first match of the night, where he got the victory. So, a lot of notables, not just in WCW, of course, that was at the time, but in pro wrestling in general. A lot of them eventually made their way to WWE at one point or another. And so that was a pretty cool, flashback moment, and for him to mention on that very day in Jacksonville. So now what Logan Paul had to say. Logan says, I didn't come here to hear you talk, but to sign a contract to wrestle you, Cody. Of course, that was followed by "You suck" chants. They broke out very loudly. Logan Paul says he agreed to wrestle for the WWE Championship only and to not defend his United States Championship. And, come to think of it, I forgot to mention something at the top of the show. There was a backstage segment that we saw by Nick Aldis's office where we saw LA Knight make his way out, and Logan Paul, with his United States Championship, was about to make his way into Nick Aldis's office prior to this contract signing. This was some major foreshadowing as the two looked one another up and down, and you're going to find out in just a moment why I'm bringing this up. And I think following LA Knight and Carmelo Hayes' feud that they're going to have during the spring or early summertime, I think we see LA Knight, as I've mentioned many months ago, LA Knight go one-on-one with Logan Paul for that United States Championship at SummerSlam in Logan Paul's hometown of Cleveland, Ohio, where Logan Paul will likely be dethroned. I think that's the right decision. The reason I'm also bringing this up is that's why we had to hear why Logan Paul had an out as to why he's not defending his championship against the likes of Cody Rhodes. As nice as it would be for Cody Rhodes to get this victory over Logan Paul, because we all know Cody ain't losing. What's this, his second or third actual title defense since winning at WrestleMania 40, and Cody is not dropping the title, especially not to Logan Paul, that's for sure. So if this was winner take all, I'd love to see Cody win. Again, him winning the United States Championship is big in a lot of ways. That would make Cody a Grand Slam champion in WWE. I think this would be the first time that somebody has held the WWE Championship and the United States Championship simultaneously since Seth Rollins back in 2015. I think that was around SummerSlam where he had defeated John Cena for that. And so, again, that would be fantastic to see Cody win that and get the job done, becoming a Grand Slam champ, but it's not happening. Logan Paul is walking into SummerSlam as the United States champion in his hometown. May not walk out with the title, but at least he's walking into it for a very good feud with LA Knight. And so Logan Paul says he agreed to wrestle for the WWE Championship only and to not defend his U.S. title. Logan Paul tells Nick Aldis to get this done, this new contract. Nick Aldis says he's had just about enough of Logan Paul and his broccoli-headed entourage. Aldis says he's not going to stand for it. And this is when Cody took it from here. Cody says, Nick, I know how you get when you get angry. It's not pretty. Respectfully, he's got it from here. Paul says Cody hasn't done anything to deserve a title shot. Logan Paul then throws the contract at Cody and says, sign the contract, big boy. And things got a little heated. Cody ended up taking down Logan Paul. Logan Paul escaped the ring. Cody hoisted up both titles, his WWE Championship and Logan Paul's United States Championship. And again, as nice as that would be to see happen for many a reason, that will not be taking place, at least not this time around. Now for this next match, I should probably pour myself a drink before I review it. It's not a lot to review. I just have a lot to say about it. This is one half of the Women's Tag Team Champions Jade Cargill versus Nia Jax. Now last week, Jade had a very good match with Piper Niven. The two looked fantastic, especially for it to be Jade Cargill's first singles match in WWE. Did better than I anticipated. So make of that what you may. Anyway, this was nothing but Jade Cargill being overly protected from a pinfall or submission. Jade ended up losing this match due to a disqualification, a chair shot to Nia Jax, and this was a mess. Honestly, this could not have ended any quicker. There was no match, really. They were in the ring for a couple of spots. They were on the outside, and Jade accidentally got hit by the chair. She didn't get out of the way in time by Nia. If the referee caught that, he could have easily just as quickly disqualified Nia, making Jade advance. But fortunately for those producers who wrote this match to turn out the way it did, the right woman advanced, Nia advanced. And so the two will meet later on down the road, that's for sure, with Jade likely getting a victory. But man, this was messy, honestly. WWE booked themselves into a corner because how could you really justify Jade over Nia at this point in time? Only her second singles match and her beating Nia just isn't really believable at this point. I mean, yeah, you look at Jade and she's got a phenomenal physique, but as far as wrestling ability, no, not somebody as big and strong and seasoned as Nia Jax. We get it. Jade has an incredible aura, presentation. Let's be honest, she's going to struggle in singles if she hasn't improved quickly. She may get by in this tag team capacity as a tag team champion alongside the EST of WWE, Bianca Belair, but if you're trying to push her to the top with the likes of Bianca Belair, Becky Lynch, Bayley, Charlotte, Rhea Ripley, it's going to take a whole lot, a whole hell of a lot. So Jade and Bianca may be tag team champions, honestly, until at least 2025. Maybe after the Royal Rumble, they may split them up, have an eventual feud with tag partner Bianca Belair. And again, if you're going to put Jade over in a matchup with Bianca Belair, it's going to take a lot more work than how she's presented right now for us to really believe it. So I did not care for how abruptly it all ended. I wish the two would have legitimately had some semblance of a match instead of rushing to the finish to get to the both of the ladies out of there, but I understand why they did it. Again, if you're really looking at this from a wrestling standpoint, unbiasedly, you understand here why they're just trying to get Jade off TV as quickly as possible, especially when it comes to singles. And so, there's really no more to elaborate on this match or Jade Cargill herself. I'm hoping for the best for her. Again, everything else, she checks every box except in-ring ability, and that's very important. She's solid on the mic. Again, great presentation, amazing aura. I just hope that in singles, she can do enough to get by in tag team or a trios match, but in singles, it's going to take a little bit. So this next match here, we had a tag team match, DIY versus Angel and Humberto of Legado Del Fantasma. DIY got the win with A-Town Down Under ringside for the match, the WWE Tag Team Champions. I don't know if this means we're going to see DIY going up against A-Town Down Under, maybe next Saturday at King and Queen of the Ring or sometime in the near future. I don't believe it was a number one contenders match, but either or, I don't see Austin Theory and Grayson Waller losing those tag titles just yet. Will they make it throughout the duration of the summer with those titles? Probably not, but I don't think it's going to happen just yet. So next up here, we had Byron Saxton backstage with AJ Styles, discussing with AJ how difficult it's been for him the month of May specifically. in his losses to Randy Orton last week and Cody Rhodes a little before that at Backlash. Even if you want to go back to April, WrestleMania 40 and a loss to LA Knight. The only thing that's been good for him in 2024 is really his physique and his new theme music. And even that's questionable. His theme song's all right. I definitely prefer his babyface one or the one he's had for the last 8 years in WWE, but it was time for a new theme song. I do get that. Anyway, it's been a rough year for AJ Styles, even dating back to the Royal Rumble, losing in that fatal 4-way to Roman Reigns for his undisputed WWE Universal Championship. So we don't really know what's next for AJ Styles. Will he be in any kind of a significant feud? Will he be used much like Shinsuke Nakamura, who is now on SmackDown as well? Past year and a half, 2 years, Nakamura has been catching L's left and right on Monday Night Raw in notable feuds, again, likes of Cody Rhodes and so on, but not really doing anything of significance with a Shinsuke Nakamura, AJ Styles even, maybe in big matches, but always ending up on the losing side of things. So we'll see what happens as far as that goes. But now it's main event time. The Viper, the Apex Predator, Randy Orton versus Carmelo Hayes. I mean, this was a fantastic match. I don't think anybody thought it wouldn't be. Again, this is a big deal for Carmelo Hayes. He's been showcased in a lot of big matches here in his few weeks on WWE SmackDown. Just a few weeks ago, he main evented against Cody Rhodes. He got a win last week in the first round of the King of the Ring tournament over Baron Corbin. And yet again, here he is going in the main event of SmackDown against Randy Orton. So look, even in losing efforts, as I mentioned in the SmackDown preview yesterday, even in a losing effort, Carmelo Hayes is doing his thing, and you see the trajectory of where he's headed. Big things for him in the very near future, that's for sure. So, great match. Ends with an RKO out of nowhere for the victory. Randy Orton moves on to the next round, going up against the Bloodline yet again. Seems like he can't escape them the last couple of years, ever since dropping those Raw Tag Team titles, was it? Him and Riddle to the Usos on an episode of SmackDown, where he went out with the back injury shortly thereafter. And, ever since, he's been battling them one way or another. Old Bloodline, new Bloodline. So we have Tama Tonga, Randy Orton next Friday on SmackDown. And immediately following Randy Orton's victory, Bloodline made their way out. Solo Sikoa, Tongaloa, Tama Tonga, Paul Heyman. And Orton, basically had a few things to say, that he doesn't care who he's got to deal with in the Bloodline, regardless of it's an actual official in-the-ring match with one of them or those that always interfere on the outside. He's going to take them down. And then next Friday on SmackDown, he's going to introduce Tama Tonga to the 3 most deadliest letters in sports entertainment. RKO. And by the way, Randy Orton, much like Bianca Belair, has been selling this knee injury. I'm not sure if it's the same exact knee, the left knee, like Bianca, but either or, he's been quite hobbled with the knee injury as well. So is this foreshadowing for both Bianca Belair and Randy Orton that they're not going to advance to the finals at the PLE because they're dealing with these knee injuries? Is that what Nia Jax is going to work on for Bianca? Is that what Tama Tonga and the Bloodline are going to work on for, Randy Orton here? Is this a whole Samoan thing on the men's and women's side of things that they're both going to advance? So we'll see. It's looking pretty likely. Again, I'd love to see Gunther versus Randy Orton, but it's looking like it may be Jey Uso getting revenge on Gunther, who he lost to back in February for that Intercontinental Championship opportunity. And it looked like Tama Tonga may be squeaking by Randy Orton with the help of his friends. As far as the women are concerned, can Io Sky get past Lyra Valkyria, the newcomer to Monday Night Raw, former NXT Women's Champion? Both of them are, actually. We'll see. I think Io should come out of Raw, to be honest. And as far as SmackDown's concerned, I'd love to see Bianca advance. I'd love to see that rematch of Backlash last year for Bianca's title in Io Sky, in Bianca Belair. But it's looking like Nia Jax might get the job done. That would be back-to-back weeks, one way or another, beating both of the WWE Women's Tag Team Champions. So I'm super curious to see what's going to happen there. But again, SmackDown live next Friday. Glad it's not pre-taped. And that is just about all I got for you here on this episode of Turnbuckle Topics, my review of Friday Night SmackDown, May 17th. And I enjoyed it overall. The episode overall was pretty good. Again, was not crazy how the Nia Jax and Jade Cargill match, lack thereof, went down. But so be it. That's what we got. So I want to thank each and every one of you for tuning in yet again to the Turnbuckle Topics podcast. I'm your host, Pat Deneen, and I'll catch you next time. Thanks for listening.